Okay, everybody, thank you. We'll call the meeting to order in a second here. Usual, we're going to do a roll call to be sure that everybody knows who is online. We will work up from the bottom and then we will call the meeting to order. So Ron Kelly Sparrows, are you here?
I'm here at the bottom, Your Worship. Thank you.
Todd Cole, are you available? Do not hear him. Matt Pride, are you in?
Yes, Your Worship, I'm here, ready to go.
Thank you. Mike Green, Deputy Chief.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm here.
Thank you. Craig Bowser.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm here and ready to go.
Thank you. Assistant Clerk Becky Goodwin.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent Public Works Robert McLean.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you. Town Engineer Dwayne Atkin.
I'm here, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mike Beal.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm here. Thank you.
Donna Beal.
Thank you, Mayor Hyam. Yes, I'm here.
Thank you. Mr. Burke.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm here.
Okay. Councillor Finney. Unmute if you can, please, and just acknowledge.
Yes, Your Worship, I'm here.
Thank you. Councillor Butcher.
Yes, I am here as well.
Thank you. Councillor Black. Councillor Black, I believe you're muted.
Sorry about that. I am here. Hi, guys.
Thank you. Councillor O'Neill.
I'm here, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Evans.
I'm here and I won't give a long dramatic pause like Councillor Black did.
Councillor Michaud.
I am here, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Tower.
I am here, Your Worship. Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor Aiken.
I'm here, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. And myself. Okay, so just to be clear, we do not have Todd Cole. That was the only one we did not have on our list.
Uh-oh.
I will work our way through the IT problems, just as we just had one there. Perfect timing on that. We're still working out kinks, and please recognize that in most cases, you will be brought back in by the software. Sometimes that you'll have to rejoin. And the Deputy Mayor is already ready to step up if I get kicked out again. And we'll call the meeting to order. Is there a motion to approve the agenda you've had for the last 4 days?
I move we approve it, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor Aiken moves.
I'll second that. Councillor Butcher.
Councillor Butcher seconds that. Call for the question.
Question.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried. So we will go right into it. We do have a lot of topics. However, I think you've probably all read the material, so it'll be quite straightforward for most of the material. But our first one, we're honored to have representatives of the Mayor's Roundtable on Climate Change. And as you know, this has gone on for several months, and we're holding a public hearing. You'll hear a little bit more about that. And they are prepared to bring you up to date, Council, on what they have done, what they've considered, and what they would like to see in the future. And I would like to ask Mr. Elliott if you could step forward and unmute your mic.
Yes, good evening, Your Worship.
And Richard, will you be introducing the others with you, or you will be mostly speaking? Or
Yeah, we'll be dividing the speaking up between three speakers, three members of the roundtable. Although Barb Clayton seems to be having difficulty getting on, so if she can't make it, I'll present the section that she would otherwise have been giving.
okay.
But we're going to start with Quinn McGaskill. She'll provide the introduction, And I think Jamie has the slides that we're going to speak to.
Okay, so
Barb Clayton here. I think I'm managing to be in the meeting, so should be okay.
okay, Quinn, are you beginning?
Yes, thank you. So my name is Quinn McCaskill, and I'm a member of the Mayor's Roundtable on Climate Change. I'm also a student at the high school, and I've been involved in organizing some of Sackville's climate strikes. So I'll be giving this report to the Sackville Town Council with Richard Elliott and Barb Clayton on the Roundtable achievements and our proposed next steps. And Jamie, I think, will be circulating the presentation and some additional notes as well. Next slide. Oh.
This is working our way through the technical stuff. Jamie, are you back?
Yeah, he clicked the right button.
There we go. There you go, Quinn.
All right, so addressing climate change is still a high priority, and although we have been dealing with COVID-19, we are still in an urgent climate emergency, which will be here for a very long time. So the pandemic experience has shown us that a rapid and effective local response to a global crisis is possible, and there are many urgent and relevant actions that the town and the Sackville community and the Mayor's Roundtable should undertake. Next slide. The objectives of this presentation are we will report on what the Roundtable has achieved since it was formed in September 2019, and we will identify the next steps for the Roundtable and priority actions among those identified at the public forum. We will also present a case for a Climate Change Action Coordinator position and council support to help fund further Roundtable climate actions. Next slide. The Mayor's Roundtable on Climate Change was established by Mayor Hyam in September 2019 in response to Sackville's student climate strikes and the town's April 2019 declaration of a climate crisis, as well as increasing concerns of many Sackville residents. The Mayor's Roundtable is intended to provide advice, guidance, and leadership on climate change awareness and initiatives for Sackville. The objectives of the Roundtable are mitigating the impacts and adapting to the effects of climate change. And our initial focus was on reviewing the town's budget proposals and getting input from the community on their concerns. So I'll pass it over to Barb for the next few slides.
Okay, thanks, Quinn. I actually can't see the shared screen, so but I guess I'll just trust that we're on the same slide. So can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, so I just wanted to say that I think, as many of you probably know, I'm a prof at Mount Allison in the humanities, but I'm also a mom who helped the youth organize the climate strikes, and that was really my impetus for being a part of the Roundtable. So just so you know where I'm coming from. So just to give you an overview of the structure of the Roundtable, we have about 30 members, and we're chaired by Mayor Hyam, who of course spearheaded the Roundtable, and supported by town staff. We have a draft terms of reference, and we meet every 1 or 2 months, either in person or virtually now. And we take decisions as a group, but most of the work gets done by sort of a small working groups of volunteers. So that gives an overview of the structure. So next slide. So on this slide, we've just listed some of what we feel are our key activities and achievements, and we're going to be talking about those in the slides that follow. But just so one thing I wanted to highlight here was that the Roundtable has managed to sort of address and engage different aspects of the Sackville community. So, for example, there was the climate change workshop that was spearheaded by the Mount Allison Student Union and was really focused on youth. We engaged the town with the review of capital projects for the 2020 budget. And we held the Sackville Public Forum on Climate Change, which really engaged a broad swath of the Sackville community. So we're, as the Roundtable, I think that we've been managing to sort of communicate with and engage a broad spectrum of Sackville. So in the next couple slides, we'll go over some of these things in detail. So if we could have the next slide. So I think the first significant thing that we were able to achieve was to do a review of the capital budget items for the town, and that was requested in November of 2019. And then we sort of immediately got to action and met with staff, attended council discussions of the budget, and had some meetings on our own, and developed a climate change lens with which to review the items of the capital budget. And we submitted a report on this in December of 2019. And probably one of the, well, most obvious things now, I guess, is that one of the recommendations was that the public art project that was proposed be focused on a climate change theme and be part of educating the public on climate change. And so that was adopted by town staff, and I think most of you know then that is now in process. So that feels like a good achievement of the Roundtable. We'll be providing input on other proposals as they come to council. And I guess the thing we feel is important to stress is we think that it's important that moving forward that this climate change lens be applied to all future budget items. So that's one of the recommendations that we will be making and that Richard's going to talk about. So just to talk, next slide, just to talk a little bit more about the climate change lens. So this was drafted by Roundtable members to provide a consistent perspective to view current and planned activities and projects. And the goal is to minimize climate change impacts of the activities and policies and purchases of the town. So it's designed to be a really easily understood tool that can be used by the Roundtable and by staff. But we hope too that it could be adapted for use by the broader community. Residents, businesses, organizations, this kind of thing. So that's another thing that Richard will talk about too. So next slide. Now, to just talk about the public forum on climate change that was held. So the idea here was to gather community input on concerns and proposed activities and actions to address climate change. And this was held in February of 2020, and we really feel like it was a very successful event. We had over 70 people attend, and there were 10 presentations, 4 written submissions, and I think one of the things that was most important for the Roundtable was that we managed to solicit the interest and attention of a broad spectrum of the Sackville community. So, of course, there were members of the town staff and councillors there, but also the mayor and a councillor from Amherst. There were representations of media, of all the different educational institutions in Sackville. The federal government was represented, the agricultural community, residents, businesses, and, of course, environmental NGOs. So we really feel it was successful that way in getting ideas from the whole Sackville community. So in the next couple of slides, so if we could have the next slide, I just wanted to report on some of those ideas that were presented. So here we wanted to give the council an idea of the wealth of ideas that were generated on that day. And so what we've done here is just sort of distilled those ideas into what we saw were 5 priority categories. So the first thing that was important to come out of that was of the forum was that the idea of the need to hire a permanent staff member dedicated to climate change, so that the town really needed somebody who would be really focused on the urgency and the needs of climate change. So again, we'll come back to this, and Richard's going to talk about this, the idea of this position in a little more detail, but that was one of the things that came out of the forum. Another was that the town needed to do increased advocacy at different levels of government and with the Union of New Brunswick Municipalities to move quickly on climate change policy action and funding. And in order to do that, to collaborate, to have increased collaboration with different partners like the Southeast Regional Service Commission, the Town of Amherst, the Soil and Crop Association, and other groups. So increased advocacy and collaboration on climate change was another thing that came out of the forum. Next slide. And then there were a number of specific actions and projects that were suggested, and we've listed some of them here, but the Roundtable has sort of gone through and vetted some of those and tried to prioritize them. And because Richard's going to talk about that, I will not go over those in detail because we're going to come back to them. But another important sort of thematic area of concern that came out of the forum was the need to educate people on climate change. And so specifically, one of the suggestions was the importance of sort of holding a climate change 101 trainings for incoming town councillors on climate change. So climate change information for town councillors. And also generally that the town should support opportunities for local groups and different educational institutions, the schools, Mount A, and local NGOs to advance climate change education. So education and communication was another important theme to come out of the forum. So now I'd like to turn it over to Richard to discuss next steps for the Roundtable, and thank you.
Thanks, Barb. This is a great overview of how far we've come so far, and I'm going to talk about where we hope to go in the next year or so. My name is Richard Elliott. I'm a retired wildlife biologist, former research director for wildlife for Environment and Climate Change Canada. And as part of my work, I was involved with looking at the impacts of climate change on wildlife and their habitats. And I bring that interest in the environment and climate change into the activities that I'm undertaking on behalf of the Mayor's Roundtable. So I'm going to be talking about things that we will hope to do for with respect to climate change over the next few months and years. And we're seeking continued support from council and staff and resources from the town of Sackville to continue these roundtable activities. I'm going to focus on 4 key next steps. Some of the actions that Barb talked about, which we hope to undertake in the next year. Going back to the theme of a climate change action coordinator and how having a person on staff would enable us to really move ahead by leaps and bounds and actually translate plans into action. I think that's a challenge that we often have. Lots of plans that we don't often get around to doing things, and this will enable us to do that. We want to take another look at the roundtable structure to make sure that it's as effective as it can be. And finally, we're thinking of developing a budget request to council and looking for support from both within Sackville and from outside external financial sources. Next slide, please. You've seen some of these items before because many of them come from suggestions that were brought to the roundtable by members of the community who spoke at our February climate change forum. And we put asterisks beside most of them. And there's a difference between the first 2, which are obviously substantial initiatives that would require funding sources to undertake. But the other ones we think could be undertaken with relatively little or no actual additional funding, as long as we had people in place, both on the council, both on staff in the form of a climate change coordinator and within the roundtable itself to move these projects ahead. Most of them can be undertaken within the next year, already started up within the next year with little or no additional funding. We're also trying to maintain a lot of flexibility in where we go from here. None of these are identified as our highest priority or must-dos because we understand that the town is facing a difficult time right now. They're going to have to think about what their priorities are over the next couple of years. And at the same time, we hope that we can find a way to move ahead on climate change. Next slide, please. We feel that if we're going to be able to really take significant action, it will be important to have a climate change coordinator in place. Just having a summer student working on climate change with Jamie and the team on the town staff has really, I think, helped us move ahead already. And we'd like to hire a dedicated staff person who's an expert on climate change to enable us to keep on moving in this direction. We want to facilitate links with other groups and experts and interest groups within the Sackville community. So we want to advance the implementation of some of those high priority actions that we identified in the previous slide. We're hoping that even though this person has a strong primary climate change focus, they could also look at some of the policies we already have in place or town plans that touch on climate change and bring some of those thoughts that have already been well worked out into action as well. We feel the key here, though, is to have a well-funded position that will enable us to attract a very highly skilled expert to help us move ahead. We also know that we don't have to have funding just from the town to do this. There are significant outside sources that we can tap into, and that's the proposal that we have, is to use a little bit of town funding, maybe as a starting point, but look to some of these outside sources. I'll talk a bit more about that in a following slide. Next slide, please. We mentioned that the roundtable structure has worked quite well over the last year, and we identified several of the strengths here that it brings together a wide range of experts from within the community, as well as sectors who've got an interest within the community on what climate change means and how we should be addressing it. And we've used the idea of small working groups to take action. That's worked well as in addition. And so this has given us the opportunity to collect and refine ideas and proposals. But some of the weaknesses that we flagged are that it relies on busy people like the mayor, Jamie, and other members of staff to help us get our meetings in place and to move things ahead. We also know that many community sectors may not be represented on the council right now and may well have an interest in being part of this activity. We also think that our present structure is not as effective as it could be in actually reaching decisions and initiating actions. And finally, the lack of a budget and a lack of a staff person has really limited our ability to take concerted actions. So our overall goal is to refine the structure to ensure that we can be effective, efficient, and engaging, and at the same time maintain that flexibility that I mentioned earlier. So we're hoping to come up with some ideas that we'll present to council or to staff over the next few months, with the idea of a small steering group that would sort of move things ahead and keep things organized, and then a larger roundtable that would bring the experts, the stakeholders, and sector reps together. And to do this, we feel that we need to have an initiative that can bring together some roundtable budget and funding. In the order of 100 to 125K, that would include salary and benefits for a coordinator and enable us to get moving on some of those priority projects. Although we want to get some partial funding from the town of Sackville, we also know that groups like Natural Resources Canada and many other agencies are out there that can provide some money to us, as long as we have a way to tap into those funds. And again, it's a little bit like the chicken and the egg. We need someone to help us get to that those sources of funding. And the internship program from Natural Resources Canada, I think, is what we're going to hope to start. And so this comes to the request to council. We'd like to ask for your continued support. In the next slide, Jamie.
Thank you.
We're asking town council to confirm its current commitment to support for the roundtable. We feel that we've demonstrated that our activities are relevant and useful and kind of unique. I don't think other communities have been able to do what we've had in that less than a year. And then we've identified up to 6 activities or areas that we think we can demonstrate that commitment together, council, staff, and the roundtable, by assigning a small operating budget for next year. And that would include funds for the coordinator. Again, affirming that staff support is available to help us move ahead on these activities. Working to apply the climate change lens to capital budget again. I think that worked quite well. And perhaps even other areas like the operating budget or some other things that the town has to undertake. Again, we think that the climate change lens can help us do that. Supporting a revised version of the roundtable structure and looking at ways that we can provide training or awareness to the incoming councils, because we know that the council will be changing over in the next year or so. Next slide. So that's the end of my section. I'm just going to pass it back now to Quinn, who's going to give a bit of a wrap up, and then we can see if there's any quick questions from the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Richard. So addressing climate change in 2021, we do recognize that the town's priority in 2021 will still be coping with the COVID-19 pandemic. However, addressing climate change is a long-term investment, and the roundtable and coordinator will identify an effective, efficient, and flexible path moving forward. We consider this to be a pilot initiative, which would be subject to annual approval. And the community of Sackville definitely has a real opportunity here to become a leader in climate action, which is pretty exciting. Next slide. We would like to say a big thank you to Mayor Hyam, the Sackville Town Council and staff for setting up and supporting the roundtable. And we want to say thanks to the roundtable members and Sackville residents for their input. And thanks to the presenters and written submissions for their contributions to the public forum. Next slide. We would welcome any questions, comments, or suggestions from council members. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So council is open to questions from you. If you wish to put your hand up, we'll call you as ordered. Councillor Evans, please.
Yes, I want to thank the presenters. I'm delighted, and I really like Quinn's graphic. I mentioned this at a meeting previously when I heard that the Mayor's Roundtable was going to be presenting. It's easy for us to forget in dealing with the pandemic that we have a more, in fact, it's a bigger issue and it's much more long-term, but we have to start dealing with it now. And so I'm very pleased. I also appreciate the fact, or recognize the fact, that as someone who's personally been outspoken in support of this, we are now being asked to put our money where our mouth is. And so I think this is our number one priority other than continuing to operate. And so I just want to say thank you, and you are receiving a positive response from me.
Thank you. Any other councillors with questions on what you've heard, or anything of the ask of council that you would like to get clarified? Councillor Butcher, please.
Thank you. I just want to echo what Councillor Evans said, and say that I've always been in support of this, and I look forward to Sackville continuing to be a leader in this respect. I really was excited to see how much you've got done. I just spent the morning hiking in Kujawak, and we were talking about the dark sky designation they have there. So that's of interest to me. I look forward to hearing about all of the initiatives and ideas that you guys have put together. So thank you very much.
Any other councillors wish to?
I'd like to, Your Worship. It's Councillor Finney, if I may.
Oh, thank you, Bruce. Go ahead, Councillor Finney.
Okay, I'd like to ask, what is the Explore Dark Sky Preserve? I think I remember something about it when it was presented in February, I think it was, but I don't quite recall what it's really all about.
Richard, do you want to take that?
Yes, thanks, Bruce. Yes, I'm a little forgetful about all the details, but the general idea is that it recognizes communities that take an effort to minimize the impact of light pollution in the skies at night, and basically minimizing the use of unnecessary lights. So if we leave lights on in office buildings or in areas that really don't need them, we're potentially wasting energy, and we're also providing light pollution into the skies. And so it's got a multiple purpose, but I think the primary goal for us from the point of view of climate change is it would reduce unnecessary expenditure on lighting. The town's taken a lot of initiative already to move towards minimum energy use of its lighting and other energy consumption sources in the town. But this would sort of take it that one step further, and it would give us some recognition across Canada as a player who tries to reduce energy expenditure as well as light pollution at the same time. I think it would be one of those things that we could take as a starting initiative that would draw attention both to that initiative and the Climate Change Roundtable.
Thank you, Richard. You explained it just about the same way the other guy did at that meeting. See, one other question, if I may. The 125K, where will that be coming from? Are you looking for all of it from council, or are there other avenues that you're going to be getting it from?
Perhaps I'll start with that, and Barb can chime in if she has some other comments. No, the idea, Bruce, would be that we look to council as providing that kernel of funding that enables us to then to lever additional sources. So it would be matching funds for some small projects or initiating funds for larger ones. And for example, the initiative from Natural Resources Canada for an internship program provides 75% of a coordinator's salary if we can somehow come up with the other 25. So that would be what we're looking for, that kind of a support. We haven't identified an exact amount at this point, Bruce.
Right. Would some of the other money be coming from, or support be coming from Mount Allison University?
I don't think so. I perhaps pass that to Barb. They've got a lot of their own initiatives, but at this point, we don't really know what the sources might be.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Much appreciated.
So if I could just, two things. When we did hear that the Massou Green Fund would be part of the leveraging, not Mount A per se, but the Massou Green Fund would be one that would be interested in participating in that. Just to be clear, I wasn't exactly clear about the reply. I think Councillor Finney's question was, are you asking council to come up with 125,000 in the budget, or are you asking council to come up with a portion of that?
Thanks, John. I'll be clear. Yes, we're asking for a portion of that. We haven't identified the portion, but it would be closer to 25 than 125.
All right. I hope I'm not missing somebody on the chart here, but I would like to ask about the Youth Council. I know that Quinn and I had a couple of discussions about that. Have you any ideas over what you're thinking of is on the Youth Council?
Yeah, that's definitely a exciting possibility for Sackville. I'll have to follow up on that and see if there's any other youth in the community who would be interested in that as well.
Did you ever get the format from Mayor Cogan for the Youth Council in Amherst?
I've had a conversation with Jason Blanche, and I think I'll reach out to Mayor Cogan in Amherst.
Okay, thanks. Hopefully you can get across the border and back. Are there any other questions? No? Look, I want to thank the speakers today, but there's a large group of people behind you who put in a lot of work on this, and I am very pleased with how you have conducted yourselves so professionally and forthright, and I really appreciate how you've summed it all up for us in a very short period of time. That's a hard thing to do, and you've placed the challenge with council to meet and match what you need to do, and obviously you've got a group of volunteers that are prepared to step ahead as soon as that signal comes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move to item number 2, which is, as you know, it's UMNB has asked for motions, and Mr. Beal, are you going to speak to this?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'll touch on this. So, as council knows, this council has been very active over the last few years in submitting resolutions to the UMNB. So we looked at it, and there are a couple of UMNB resolutions that finance would look at bringing forward. But given that that we're in a COVID era right now, we didn't feel it was beneficial to continue to ask for additional money. As well, given that over the last 3 years, we still have 6 financial motions that the town of Sackville had submitted that do not have a final result on them yet. They are being actioned, but there's no final result, and there's no financial money that has savings that have come to Sackville. Those being property tax exemptions for municipal properties in 2019, full HST rebate in 2019, permanently doubling the gas tax fund in 2019, restoring designated highway funding in 2019, better funding formula for LSD for fire protection in 2018, LSD funding for recreational services in 2018, and 2017 street lighting reduction in the amount billed to municipalities based on actuals. So I know UMNB did, the last one did appear before the rate hearing, but there's been no reduction in our bill. So there's still a significant amount of resolutions that could result in financial savings to municipalities. We felt that at this point it wasn't beneficial to move forward with another financial one, that we would look to do so in 2021 if things get back to a somewhat of a new normal. So we did look at one motion that we would bring forward, and that is that the provincial government have the UMNB participate on behalf of municipalities in New Brunswick on any funding that comes from the federal government through the provincial government, and that's going to be designated to municipalities. So the motion we'd be looking at is relative to the new Safe Restart Agreement that was signed between the provincial and federal government that does designate $40 million to municipalities, and then would expand the motion to also say any additional funding that comes from the federal government through the provincial government that UMNB should be an active participant in those discussions on how the money is being spent and what the criteria is for funding for municipalities in New Brunswick.
Well, thank you, Mr. Beale. So it's straightforward that we heard there were $40 million come down. The only public conversation we've had was that the Premier said that he would have to decide where it should go. And that was the reason for this idea that there should be a direct consultation with the voice of the municipalities to have input to that. Councillor Evans, your hand's up.
Yeah, I wanted to make the point, the treasurer referred to these as our motions. I just want to make the point that at the annual general meeting, they were adopted by UMNB, so that it's not just, we're not the only voice. This is something that the whole organization has supported. And I think that it's good that we initiate these things, but it's really important that UMNB follow up on it. So I completely concur with the treasurer's recommendation, and I support this motion, and it's clear to me what it means. I'm just wondering if we might change the wording just a little bit in the be it resolved line to say that we're petitioning the provincial government that UMNB be a participant in how the money is spent. It just says that we're petitioning the provincial government to be a participant, and I just want to make sure that we want UMNB to be part of that. And that's my only, I'm in support, but it's just a clarification.
Thank you, Councillor. We can definitely look at that, but we also need to send these the resolution off to UMNB as well for their comments, which I believe we usually do before they go forward.
Okay. Any other questions on the one proposed UMNB resolution that we would forward this year? If not, then the staff will do some consultations and look at that edit suggestion, and it will be before you next week. Okay, thank you very much. Item number 3, Mr. Kelly Spurls, are you taking this one?
Thank you, Your Worship. I am, yes. So, Your Worship and Town Councillors are going to report on the Town of Sackville Draft Marketing Plan. As you're all, I'm sure, aware, the town's strategic plan identifies communications and marketing as one of the strategic directions for the municipality, and recommends that we develop a marketing and communications plan. So our decision was to do the plan in 2 parts. The first, the communications piece being developed internally. Well, we felt that we needed external expertise for the marketing portion of the plan, and that's what we've done. Here, an RFP, request for proposals process, was initiated in 2019, and the Portfolio out of Moncton was a successful company to undertake the project. And to develop the new marketing plan, Portfolio undertook a variety of activities aimed at better understanding the town's positioning and to allow them to provide guidance for the marketing initiatives and other public-facing communication activities such as tourism, promotions, events, corporate branding, and other activities. And their activities included facilitated workshops with the consulting team and staff, as well as council. And they conducted 12 one-on-one telephone sessions with what they call key stakeholders, which included business owners, representatives of the university, investors, and representatives, community organizations. And they also held a successful and well-attended World Cafe with our citizens to gather information from a wider variety of interested members of the public. And Portfolio presented the draft plan at the last special council meeting on July 6th. And following the presentation, the plan was circulated to council on July 7th and also posted on the town's website, which can be found under our documents section. And highlights of the report include the formulation of 3 tactics to bring the town marketing success. The first is resident engagement, which has the goal to bring the residents together and create a sense of pride and belonging for all. The second is based around the idea of attraction with a goal to market and promote why you should come here to potential residents, visitors, and businesses. And the third tactic is consistent positioning, which is intended to create a positioning statement that defines who we are and ties all the town's assets together. As noted above, Portfolio also reviewed important town documents, including the strategic plan and the business development plan. And the new marketing plan has commonalities and connections with these plans, such as our business development strategy, which has investment attraction as a key goal, along with partnerships with the university and development of a common sense of what Sackville is. Based on the presentation of the plan, we as a staff would recommend that council approve the draft plan to become the official Town of Sackville marketing plan, and the intention is to bring a motion forward at the August 10th, 2020 regular council meeting with that intention. So I would be happy to answer any questions about the plan, or about the plan to bring the plan forward next week, and as well CAO Jamie Burke may want to add some additional comments or may field some of the questions. So thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Open to council questions or comments. Fairly straightforward that the recommendation is we accept the report and begin to act on those 3 main tactics that they have suggested. Anybody uncomfortable with that? Okay, sounds like we're good with that, and we can move on. Thank you, Mr. Kelly-Spurls, and we will move to item number 4, policy bylaw. And Mr. Beal, are you going to speak to that as well?
Yes, thank you again, Your Worship. So back in June, we had done first reading of the tax cab bylaw with the understanding we would send it to the taxi cab owners for review and comment. So that took place. We had a meeting with one of the tax cab owners and phone conversation with the other. So basically, subsequent to the meeting, we made some minor changes within the bylaw, such as criminal record checks being valid for a 24-month period. Given that, we would work, of course, the RCMP are aware of who has our taxi cab licenses to drive taxi cabs, so they would be able to make contact with us if there's any issues with any of those drivers. Fees with a set amount based on the number of vehicles rather than an amount per vehicle. So we did go with a fee schedule that goes for up to 3 vehicles, then a different amount for 4 to 6 vehicles, and then 7 or more vehicles a third amount. So that would be you could have 20 vehicles after you hit the 7 mark. We as well did make a few little changes to removing section 4.5, which was talked about that the tax cab owners shall be in ID format. We did, and we added the section up further, which allowed for us to choose the method of which we license and tag the vehicles. So the discussion was with one of the owners, they would prefer if the town issued a number, like I believe you see in a lot of the cities, like I know Moncton has Moncton taxi cab number 1234 on the side of their vehicles, kind of thing. Easier if somebody were to leave something in the taxi cab, of course, that they can look at the taxi as it's driving away and potentially get a number versus having the license on the inside of the vehicle. And we did also clarify rural rides as well, and then did clarify with that within the bylaw that to say that rural rides owned and operated as a nonprofit, provided they do not pick up and deliver the same passengers in one trip within town boundaries. And they confirmed with us that they do not pick up and drop off within town boundaries. They pick up and take outside, or pick up outside and bring in as part of the help for seniors and low-income people. So those are the only minor changes that we've had since first reading. We would be looking advancing second and third reading moving forward.
Terrific. Any questions or comments? Councillor Evans, please.
Yeah, I just want to say that this is exactly what we asked staff to do between the last meeting and this meeting, is to consult with the cab companies themselves and come up with these things. So I just want to thank them for doing that. This is the way the process should work, and I'm grateful for it.
Thank you, Councillor Evans. Not seeing anybody else wishing to speak. Thank you, Mr. Beal. That looks like everybody's happy with your explanation. We have another one, though. Moving to policy, and Ms. Goodwin, you're going to speak to this one, I am.
Yes, I am. Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. In 2008, council passed a motion that the town of Sackville will not purchase bottled water for use in any municipal buildings or functions unless there is an otherwise unforeseen health or safety requirement to do so, and will seek to provide drinking fountains or other options for public and staff drinking water consumption in these buildings. So that was passed in 2008. The town has implemented this motion in all facilities, and staff have worked to draft a policy 2020-12, the purchase and use of bottled water, to further support the motion from 2008. It should be noted within this policy that the Sackville Fire Department and the canteen at the Civic Center will be exempt from this policy. The fire department provides bottled water for their members when battling fires or attending rescue incidents, and the Civic Center canteen provides bottled beverages for consumption by players and visitors at the Civic Center. So it'd be our suggestion that we would bring this forward at our next regular council meeting next week for approval by council.
Any questions or comments from folks? Again, a long-standing practice, but now to put it into a policy that we can be guided by. Hearing none, thank you, Ms. Goodwin.
Thank you.
And we will move on to public art, which you heard a teaser about a little earlier, and is that Mr. Burke, you're going to speak to that?
Yeah, that's me, Your Worship. Thank you. Good evening, Your Worship, members of council. I guess this is one of those kind of fun capital projects that we get to report on. So I'll just kind of take you through the report and the submission, and I think the work speaks for itself. So as you all know, the town allocated $25,000 in the 2020 capital budget for public art. And I guess in working with the Mayor's Roundtable on climate change, as part of the consultation process, it was determined that the public art could benefit from focusing on a climate change awareness theme. So that's what we ran with, and the Mayor's Roundtable on climate change provided some specific advice, I guess, and guidance and expertise in the RFP document, which we put out for bids. So in the RFP document, we provided some general areas of where we thought the municipality could accommodate a new piece of public art, that being the entrance to the waterfowl park behind the arts wall, the Lund property potentially, the new naturalized stormwater retention pond area, the Visitor Information Center, and lastly, the area around the Civic Center. So the RFP was issued on June 25th and it closed on July the 21st. We issued one addendum for this RFP simply to extend the closing date. We did that for a specific reason, I guess. We actually advertised this RFP not just on the New Brunswick Opportunities Network, which is where we have to post, but also on Akimbo, which is kind of the leading national arts website for these types of projects. That's why we extended the deadline by a week. And we also posted the RFP notice on the with the Creative Cities Network of Canada, of which we are a member. So we had a lot of interest. We had 26 people express an interest and pick up the package, and at the end we received three bids. And just for the benefit of those listening tonight, whenever we open a tender RFP, the results of those documents are posted almost immediately thereafter, or at the latest the following day, where they are posted on the website for everyone to see who picked up and who ended up bidding. So that information has been posted, and in this case we had 3 submissions, one from Jeffrey Pugin, one from Ian Alter, and another from Slipperloo Studio. So we've now completed the evaluation of the 3 submissions. In addition, we solicited feedback from the Mayor's Roundtable on climate change, which is what we committed to do at the onset. So at the end of the day, all of the submissions were very well done and unique. All were on budget. But at the end, the Slipperloo Studio project scored the highest, and it was unanimous, not just amongst the jurors, I guess, but also amongst the members who participated with the Mayor's Roundtable on climate change. So I'll show their proposal, which is called the Chignecto Balance, here in a second. So I guess what we liked was that the work was large, at up to 15 feet high, and finished in chrome. It includes a weather vane at the top and some hidden rain troughs, which will collect water and then distribute the rain as the storm or weather subsides. It has a directional compass at the base. So the weather vane at the top actually turns, which is what we've really liked. So if you can just bear with me here, I'll just call the sketch up, and Your Worship, you just tell me when you can see that on your screen.
I can see it. Yep. So
this is I guess whenever we're dealing with public art, vandalism, of course, is one of the things that we're obviously concerned about, which can be an expense. But we particularly like this one because of its durability and height, where we feel it can withstand vandalism. It's also maintenance free. So it's a polyethylene bearing in the top of the cattail, which is maintenance free and has been proven in Rocky Harbour, Newfoundland, in Grosemore National Park. So and lastly, I guess we were really impressed. This really, we felt, related to the Tantramar region, from the name to I guess the balance of being a transportation corridor, but also rich in wildlife. So we felt this was the strongest and most appropriate work for the community. And given its size and design elements, we really felt that it would be a strong symbol in raising awareness for climate change. And then I guess just lastly, I guess the Slipperloo Studio, this isn't certainly their first outdoor piece of public work. They have a long list of projects, including the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier in Ottawa. So we're really excited about this. To have a well-recognized national artist considering our municipality for a new piece of public art. So, Your Worship, with that, I guess in closing, I'd just like to thank the members of the Roundtable. I know they're certainly getting their opportunities today, but it was really great to have their expertise, not just in developing the RFP, but also in kind of the evaluation of the proposals too. So I'd be happy to take any questions, but we would be prepared to advance a motion at the regular council meeting next Monday to award the work to Slipperloo Design Studio based in Vancouver.
Councillor Evans, please.
Yeah, I have a comment and a question. My comment is anytime we're doing anything like this, which is about taste, it's very, it can be very challenging and difficult. And so I am going to make a decision to accept the recommendation almost before I see it, because otherwise we'll get into fighting about what I prefer. But in this case, I actually, I do agree. So I think it's wonderful. My question is, you named several locations where it could be put, but you didn't tell us what the decision was. I'm just curious about that.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Evans. I guess that's one of the details that the Mayor's Roundtable alluded to in their presentation, that the final details would be subject to consultation amongst them, ourselves, along with the artist. The artist has left it open for us to make a determination because it has a small, slender base, not much larger than a telephone pole. We have the ability to accommodate on any one of the 5 sites that are proposed. In our initial discussions amongst ourselves, as well as the Mayor's Roundtable, we felt that the Lawrence Street Retention Pond would be a nice fit, as well as potentially the area behind the arts wall at the entrance of the Civic Center. So either one of those two are kind of the, I guess, the front runners, but we would leave that open to have some further discussions with the artist and the Mayor's Roundtable.
Yeah, I agree. I think having it as public as possible is a good thing. Heron's Watch down there, you know, is great because it is so public, and I would want this to be seen by as many people as possible. So that's all I'll say about that.
Any other questions?
Yes, Your Worship, if I may.
Councillor O'Neill.
Thank you, Your Worship. Jamie, this you say is 15 feet high. I presume it's going to be embedded in cement, and would that, whatever depth that goes in the cement, would that take away from the heights, or is there?
Yeah, it's a good question, Councillor O'Neill. It would be simply we'd pour a sonotube similar to what we've done on some of the signage that we've installed recently at the horse trough. We have just installed some new signage down at the retention pond. That's also been on a sonotube. So depending on the height of the sonotube out of the ground, I think our preference would be that it would be as flush as possible to grade, so that you're almost standing on the compass to have a bit more of an impact for interaction with viewers.
Yep.
And Your Worship, I just want to make sure that when I shared my screen, the sculpture was visible.
Yes. It was just a little smaller than the other, but I think it was visible. It was a little thinner than.
It was, what he's saying is less than 15 feet tall.
Okay.
Joyce, that might be you. Do you mind muting again? Sorry. Just that one point that Councillor Evans made was also interested that the roundtable people who looked at the design spoke about it needing to be seen by people because it would be an educational tool where you would learn to see which way the winds were blowing and what that meant, and what that meant when it moved another direction. So it was quite interesting, their view of it having a different benefit than perhaps just a nice looking thing.
Yeah, Your Worship, thank you. That's a really good point. And because it is the weather vane, ideally it would be in an area that's obviously windy, and would have kind of a true reality of the current weather conditions. So that was one of the reasons why some members of the roundtable felt that the retention pond that's open and clear may be a better spot to capture the wind. And of course, we would look to add this piece to our arts walk tourism material and add it to our website as well. So no matter where it is in the community, we're hoping to get the word out that where it is, what it is, and how people can interact with it, which we feel is really important.
And is there, I know it might be in your report, but is there a potential time frame if council passes this next week?
Yeah, we would be looking for, the artist would immediately then go to kind of the finalized design, then proceed with production. Obviously, there's some shipping logistics that have to happen between Vancouver and Sackville, New Brunswick. But in the proposal, they've outlined that The tail end of November, 1st of December would be the installation period.
Okay. I'm not seeing any other questions or hands up. An administrative matter, if I might. Mr. Cole is showing that you have arrived. We had you marked as not attending. Can we now mark you as tardy?
Yeah, sorry about that, Your Honor. I was about 5 minutes late.
Okay. So I like writing that word, tardy. Okay. Okay, we're good with the RFP. We'll move to item number 6, BIA. Mr. Kelly Spurl, is that you again?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm sorry, I had my microphone turned off and then I couldn't find it. Yes, that is me. Thank you. This is just an update to update the council on the BIA, our Main Street organization, and their recent activity. We were very pleased to see that on July the 15th, the Main Street were able to hold their long anticipated AGM, and it was held at the Civic Center. And at the meeting, financial statements for 2019 were presented and accepted, and a new board of directors was appointed. Anthony Madalena, who runs Bagtown Brewery, was named the new president, and other officers were scheduled to be appointed by the new board. Mr. Madalena has already, since that date, begun joining our weekly meetings with Mount Allison, where we're planning for the return of students. And he's been discussing with Mr. Burke and I some ways to collaborate in the future. And also since the AGM, the organization has held their first board meeting. Furthermore, the board is requesting, as per Section 5.3 of the Business Improvement Areas Act, that the town appoint a representative to their board. Specifically, Section 5.3 states, if a bylaw is made under subsection 1, the council may appoint a member of council to serve on the board of directors of the corporation. So we're very pleased to see the renewed interest in this organization, which will provide an important voice for local businesses during these difficult times. And we're pleased they've also expressed their eagerness to include businesses outside of the BIA that are considering, and they are considering some form of affiliate membership. So it would be our recommendation at this time, Your Worship, that the town appoint a representative to the Main Street Board. And once again, we'd want to congratulate them on this important step forward. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or I'm sure CAO Jamie Burke would as well.
Yeah, I think that's excellent that they've reorganized, and also that they're asking for town appointment to sit on that BIA. We don't necessarily have any particular process for this, so I just want to make a couple of comments. One is that, first of all, if you're interested, I think each of you should consider whether there's a perception of any conflict with anything that you might be interested in the business area. And also that I would suggest you indicate your interest to me, and I will see how many people are interested, and then we may want to consider, this is a council appointment, so council will have to make a motion to appoint this person, but we may have to consider whether there's a process beyond that. Councillor Evans, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'm really pleased by this. Now, we have it was addressed in our marketing plan about the lack of essentially a Chamber of Commerce. Now, this is a business improvement area board, but I really like the idea they're considering expanding this, because we've had discussions in the past about changing the size of the BIA, and that's something that people in the area have to do. It's not something council can do. So anyway, anytime anything is revitalized like this, I'm enthusiastic. And I think that just to your point that you raised, I think we should nominate people, and if we have more than one person nominated, we can have an election. I would think this would be much like any other appointment, or perhaps even appointing the deputy mayor. But I defer to how you want to do it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions?
Your worship, I'd like to indicate that I'm interested in being on that board.
Thank you, Councillor Finney.
You're welcome.
And I will take that as your official notice to me that you're interested. And if any other wish, please do that during the next 6 days or so, preferably prior to that. Any other? Hearing none, we see you're all comfortable with what you're looking for next week. Oh, Councillor O'Neill, sorry, I didn't see that hand up. Were you trying?
Councillor Black, your worship.
Councillor Black, please.
I would also be interested in being on the board. I was at the AGM, and although it was fairly, there was it seemed like a renewed excitement in Main Street redevelopment and the BIA. So I would definitely be interested in being there as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Evans, were you putting your hand up again?
I just wanted to point out that it's understandable that you confused the Councillor O'Neill and the Councillor Black. I have a hard time telling them apart too. So.
I won't comment.
I think I will. He needs glasses.
All right. So this is anybody who wants to sleep on that. Please know that any one of us is eligible. So feel free to let me know, and we'll have a nomination form set up for council next week to consider who all wants to be that position. And I'm happy to hear there are multiple people that want this. I think it's really important that the BIA and we support it. So thank you. Can we move on to number 7 then? Sackville Sports Wall of Fame and Mr. Pride.
Thank you, Your Worship. As you all know, Gregor McCaskill and David Hicks both served on the Sackville Sports Wall of Fame Board of Directors for the last 3 years. However, their terms expired at the end of June, and Mr. Hicks is asked to part ways with the board. So the current board of directors has asked that council reappoint Gregor McCaskill, who has shown interest in staying on for an additional 3-year term. And they're also recommending that council appoint John Peters for a 3-year term as well, both of which would be effective immediately and expiring June 30th, 2023. So Gregor has been an active and effective member of the board for the past 3 years. And I believe everybody knows John Peters' history in supporting sport in town, and he's a member of the Sackville Sports Wall of Fame himself as under the builder category. Finally, I'd like to take a second just to publicly thank David Hicks for his time on the board. And there will be a motion coming forward next week to reappoint Mr. McCaskill and appoint John Peters, both for 3-year terms expiring at the end of June 2023. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Evans, your hand is up.
I wanted to echo what Mr. Pride just said. We're really fortunate to have such good people willing to serve, and to have Dave Hicks replaced by someone who is, I don't want to get into a competitive here, but equally good. We have a lot of good people. And I just want to point out that although Gregor McCaskill has a number of redeeming qualities of his own, he has the privilege of being Quinn's father, and I think that's really the big selling point for him.
I wish Quinn was still on to comment on that. Any other comments? It's fairly straightforward. Thank you, Mr. Pride. I'm not seeing any other questions. Okay, we shall move on to item number 8, extrication tools. Chief Bowser, and I think Mike Beal, we're going to ask you a couple of questions about the context of such a purchase as well. But Chief Bowser, you're up.
Thank you, Your Worship, members of council. So one of the projects this evening is in discussion. In 2019, council approved the fire department's capital budget request of $65,000 to replace a set of extrication tools that we've had in service for 25 years. When preparing our capital projects for 2019, we reached out to our Homatro supplier for a budgetary number, which came in at $63,000. This said, we've currently reached out for a current quote for one complete set of Homatro extrication tools, which includes upgrading our combi tool to a battery operated platform has come in at $56,292, including HST, for the total project. I also must note that Sackville Fire and Rescue currently uses Homatro hydraulic rescue tools for various emergency response scenarios and is shoring the ongoing capability within those extrication tools. Also, there is only one supplier for the Homatro extrication tools, which is Micmac Fire and Safety Source Limited out of Fredericton. And so the pricing is in accordance with what other municipalities have received for these extrication tools, and the amount falls within the Provincial Procurement Act, whereby we don't require a tender. And to your point, to your worship, I believe Mr. Beal is going to speak further in detail on that.
Thank you. So perhaps we could go to Mr. Beal to speak about the question of a tender, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, yes, thank you, Your Worship, Chief Bowser. The Procurement Act has recently been revised. I say recently, a few years back, it was changed from the Public Purchasing Act to the Procurement Act, and recently, within the last 6 to 12 months, the limits were reviewed and looked at. So prior to that review, the requirement for tendering was 25,000 for goods and 50,000, or 25,000 for services and 50,000 for goods. That has changed, and the requirement now for tendering is 105,700 for everything. So we don't have to issue a tender in accordance with our Procurement Act. Currently in the process of reviewing all of our purchasing bylaw and the associated policies that go along with it. Look to have that brought forward to council in the fall. So it does slightly contravene our own policies, but council can award this. Council can authorize this purchase. Again, in the fall, we would look at bringing forward the bylaw and the purchase and the policies and have some changes made in those to fall in line with the Procurement Act. If council were to, we can't go higher than what the Procurement Act says. So if the Procurement Act said 25, we couldn't do 50, but the Procurement Act says 105.7, and we can go up to that amount. So we would be well within our legal rights to proceed with that. On this and other things, we looked as far as budgeting goes to, it's easier to budget so much a year over a number of years at times, but that doesn't always give us the best ability when it comes to procuring items. So I know Craig and myself have had discussion, for example, when the air packs, which we've just done over the last number of years, come up, that we would look at replacing all air packs at once and issuing a tender in the future. And this is 10, 15 years away now. Same with these tools. Look at issuing a tender for all the tools replacement, and therefore you get all the suppliers capable of bidding versus not being able to bid them, whereby the components won't interchange amongst them. It doesn't match. It doesn't work. It works okay for something like in the fire department bunker gear. Because it doesn't matter if 6 people have one set and another 6 have a different vendor, but it does work that way when it comes to SCBAs as well as rescue tools and a few other things. So we've looked at changing this in the future. Unfortunately, we can't do it now unless we want to triple the budget. But moving forward in 10 plus years, we would look at changing how we make these things going forward.
So in summary, the law, the statement that we can get this without a tender with a sole source having compared is that under the provincial law that's now allowed. We have had a practice of having a lesser amount, but what you're saying is we will also be looking at our purchasing approach under these new amounts and consider them in the future for more detail. But for this one, you're recommending we go ahead and purchase the extrication tools for the need as you described it.
Correct. And I've put the purchasing bylaw on my to-do list a couple months ago. It's not a small feat on top of everything else that's been going on, of course. So it's going to take some time to do so. And what managers and what we've agreed amongst the management group is that in each case, we would look at each one individually, whether there's significant vendors that can bid on it and can't bid on it, and when it does fall within the procurement limit of 105.7. And we would staff evaluate each case on a case-by-case basis until our own purchasing policies have been revised.
Okay, so this is open. Any, Councillor Evans, your hand is up.
Thank you for that explanation. I have a question probably for the treasurer as well. I understand why we're replacing this tool that's 25 years old and it's probably not in the best shape, but it still functions. I'm just wondering about disposal and financial implications for that.
Any disposal that happens, so there will be surplus, and any disposal that happens, no different than old air packs that had recently been disposed of with other municipalities. The revenue comes into the municipality, and we can choose. Years ago, it had to go into the General Capital Reserve Fund. Now it goes in as a revenue, and when we do our year-end transfers in and out of reserve funds, we designate amounts to our reserve funds that way.
Great, thank you.
There's actually a sale of assets in our general accounting ledger now that used to not be there because the assets had to go into the reserve fund. Now it's within our general operating budget that we do budget for on an annual basis as well.
Okay. Any other questions on extrication tools? Okay, that'll be coming before you next week in a motion, and not seeing or hearing any others, we'll move on to item number 9, designated highways. Mr. Acton, you're going to speak to this item.
Thank you, Your Worships, members of council. So to follow in line with our previous submitted 5-year capital plan for designated highways, we looked at our plan and we updated the plan to include years 2021 through to 2025. And I've attached that document. The budget numbers for these projects consists of DTI portion. As you remember, a few years ago, DTI put a town partner where we have to pay 15% of what is eligible under the DTI. So you'll see a town partnering portion, and then you'll also see a town-only portion, which is typically work that's outside of the curb, so behind the curb, such as sidewalk, landscaping, anything outside behind the curbs are not eligible for DTI funding. So that's those are the different line items that you see in each one of the projects. And of course, all of that is subject to additional funding under our general and or utility capital program each year as well. So just to quickly highlight these projects, as council is well aware, Queens Road was definitely on the top of the list, and after the work this year on exit 506, the 2021 project will include the phase 1 of 3 for Queens Road reconstruction from basically Main Street to just past Richardson, so approximately, I believe it was about 230 meters or so of Queens Road. In 2022, we would divert back to what I've referred to with council as a little bit of a lighter year, less money requirement from the town portion on the general and utility capital. And we would do an additional phase of the resurfacing of Route 106 going towards Dorchester. Council may be aware we've been working away at this over the last number of years, so we would do another phase of that. That takes us back to Queens Road for 2023, where we would do another section from where we ended off phase 1 until about Salem Street. Again, approximately, I believe, 230 meters. And then in 2024, we would go back and finish Route 106 all the way out to town limits. And that would complete that resurfacing program of 106. And then that brings us back to Queens Road for phase 3 back in 2025, where we would finish Queens Road from Salem Street to just past Fairfield Road. If you're driving out that way, you'll notice that probably about 50 or 60 meters beyond Fairfield Road is where the old road kind of ended and the new road began. So that's the 5-year capital plan that we put together. We redid obviously all the budget numbers based on today's pricing that we see in the industry. And we would be again looking to have a motion on next Monday night to have the mayor and clerk sign this. DTI have indicated they want to have the designated highway 5-year plan by the end of August, and that's the reason that we're bringing forth this month to try to meet that requirements. Your Worship, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions? Everybody's familiar with the 5-year plan and that we do it every year. We update it as best as possible with the best numbers we got. And it does take council's approval to send it in as their 5-year plan. I'm not seeing anything there, Mr. Acton, so you want to go on to your next item?
I will. Thank you, Your Worship. And again, members of council, it has to do with tender 2020-10, the Cattail Ridge Road improvements. The tender for this tender was issued on July the 8th with a closing date of Thursday, July the 23rd, 11 a.m. in council chambers. There were 6 bids or 6-pack tender packages that were picked up during this tendering process. And we were successful in receiving 4 tender bids during the tender opening on the 23rd. I've included the tender bids in my report. Beal and Inch Construction, Bowser Construction, Modern Construction, and Dexter Construction. Fairly competitive bidding. Bowser Construction being low and highlighted there in yellow. Just in regards to budget information, I know there's a fair amount of numbers, so I'd like to go down through them because ultimately we are over budget on this project. The first section just talks about the current budget or the budget that was approved both by DTI and the town, and you'll see there that total budget equated to $287,200 HST included. So obviously we're just slightly under 100,000 over budget on this project. Having said that, I broke down the DTI only portion and the town only portion, including our partners portion. So the budgeted number versus what their actual is, so you can see there's a shortfall on the DTI side of just under 58,000, so 57,800 HST included. Was the shortfall on the DTI portion, and on the town only and the town partnering, we were short as well, $45,900 HST included. Having said that, I did speak to Raymond Brunn with DTI, and they have given us the green light to proceed with the project. They understand that when you tender on something, pricing could be higher, lower. So they've indicated that they are fine with that. That leaves the shortfall for the town. Having said that, one of the capital projects that we did have on the books for 2020 was the Wright Street improvements under the capital budget. That's where we were going to finish curb and gutter, storm system, paving, and a sidewalk at the end of Wright Street that we currently own that is not up to those standards. And that was to kind of match in with what J.N.L. Lafford Realty, John Lafford and his company were planning to do. I did speak to John, and they've indicated that at least in 2020, they've got too many other projects on the go, and they will not be proceeding with that road reconstruction in 2020. Therefore, having said that, we would be looking to defer that project in 2020. And having said that, we have a budget of $99,250 HST included. of which we could use a portion of that to pay for our shortfall on this particular project. Again, it's as council is well aware, these projects, DTI funds a fairly good chunk of it. So if we had to cut the project back, it would be funds that we'd be throwing away that DTI were willing to give us. So that is, Your Worship, the information and the shortfalls and where we would be getting the additional budgets from. And again, subject to council's approval, of course, we'd be looking to proceed with the project as tendered, and there would be a potential motion coming forward next Monday night, Your Worship. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any councillor wish to ask a specific question on that? You got quite a bit of a background from Mr. Acton. Not seeing a question, so that will come forward next week. And last chance. Okay, we will move on now to Liberty Utilities. I think that is still again Mr. Acton.
It is, Your Worship. Thank you, and members of council. As you're all aware, this has been in front of council for a few times over the last year. As the original agreement between the town and Enbridge at the time, Enbridge Gas, it expired in August 31st of 2019. We've been working with Liberty Utilities, who obviously purchased and was the former Enbridge Gas, on a new agreement between the town and Liberty Utilities. We had to extend the existing agreement a few times because we hadn't received anything. We just received a copy of the municipal operating agreement less than a week ago, I believe. We've had a chance to review that. Staff reviewed it, and we had a few items that we were looking to make changes on, and we've gone back to Liberty Utilities, and they've been noted in the document. They were fairly minor, but they're just a few items that we wanted to kind of try to get in there. We've also sent this document off to legal, and as of this morning, legal has had a chance to come back to us, and they, for the most part, have no issues. There's no red flags that he's indicated. There is one minor kind of wording change that our legal is saying that we should consider, and we would be working with our legal and with Liberty Utilities to kind of tweak the wording of one of those sections. Other than that, there were no, a lot of the housekeeping things. If you've council's had a chance to go down through it, a lot of it is changing, obviously, the naming to Liberty Utilities versus Enbridge, taking out corporation, putting in municipality. As I indicated, the town had changed or added a few items. Those were highlighted in yellow. So council should have had a chance to clearly see, and it was just a couple of them were emergencies, who to contact. We wanted them to contact the town of Sackville. We wanted to try to make that clear in the document. There was a section to do with no interest on a $25,000 check that they would give us for any work that repairs that maybe didn't get done in a timely manner. We would have the ability to have some money on hand to do that. So there was no interest on that money that our treasurer wanted to ensure was there, and they've agreed to put it there. And there was a section to do with the kind of the compensation. So when Liberty Utilities comes into town to do a major construction, add a bunch of lines, there's a cost associated with them for them. As a result of staff and myself to review all those documents. So we updated those $8.50 plus HST for every $1,000 of construction value. So that was just something that we added, and we added inflation on a 2% per year to that. So there were just those a few minor changes there. And as I indicated, there is one small section. It's non-exclusive license 1C. At the very end, it talks about binding, shall not be binding upon, and it has to do with bylaws. And So we're working with legal just to kind of tweak the wording of that. Because if there was ever a bylaw that came into play, let's say a new bylaw in 2 years' time, and it wasn't a bylaw that was already in place that it affected them, it means that they would be non-binding to that bylaw. So, but it may be something that does affect liberties. So we're working with legal, and it wasn't a showstopper by any means. It's just something that legal has asked us to look at, and he's going to provide us with the wording on what we'd like to see there. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Your Worship.
Okay, we've been waiting for Liberty to come up with this, and we'll be careful what you ask for. Now we've got it. Is this also a standard agreement that they're looking at through all municipalities throughout New Brunswick? And
yes, for the most part, yes, it is, Your Worship. That's why it took so long, I guess, according to Liberty. You can imagine they're working with 10, 12 multiple municipalities trying to come up with a similar document. This document per se was kind of mottoed around the one that the city of St. John had looked at. So just so you're aware that it is similar to the city of St. John's agreement. And obviously, this is a new agreement with a new utility company, of course.
Okay. Any questions from council?
Yes, Your Worship. I have a question here.
Councilor Michaud, please.
Thank you. I'm just looking under reinstatement. I guess it's page 6 and kind of 7. Seems to be a lot of additions there. I see highlighted in red. Just kind of wondering if you might be able to provide some clarity around that, Mr. Act, in regards to what's really changed there. They talk about daylight holes. There seems to be the size of the cuts and that type of thing. And I presume when they mean reinstatement is that the work that they conduct, if they do any kind of digging, or they have to put it back the way it was. But there seems to be a lot of additional wording there, and I'm just kind of wondering what's actually changed within that, if there's going to be any more falling back to the municipality in regards to this. If you kind of could elaborate on that, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Michaud. Absolutely. And so basically, what it entails, if you've seen the way that the gas company has come into town and had done this work, what they typically will do is they will daylight a hole. They'll put a hole in one location, but then they will drill underground a certain distance. And then after they've gone a certain distance, they will daylight a second hole to be able to maybe put a valve or continue on. And what this section is saying is, if they put 2 holes that are fairly close together, and I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty, but basically less than 10 meters, I think it says, if they put 2 holes that are very close together, then they have to basically cut the whole area out and fill and do everything from one hole straight over to the other, curb to curb. But that's typically not how they do it. They would put one hole, and then perhaps it could be 100 meters down the road or 50 meters, they would do a second daylight hole. Of course, they're not required to redo the asphalt from one hole all the way down to the other hole. But if the holes are close enough together, they're basically saying that they are required to cut the entire area out curb to curb and replace all of the asphalt, let's say, for that. That's really what that comes down to. And then at the very end, it does talk about pavement degradation fees. We don't have them as any of our bylaws, but it is there if we do add a bylaw in the future. And that has to do with basically degradation fees, pavement degradation fees. Talks about, if let's just say we redid a road last year, and then Liberty Utility comes in this year and cuts a hole in that asphalt. It's brand new. It's only 1 year old. Some municipalities have a degradation fee where it was so new, and you are making a troubled area per se because you've got these cuts. There would fees be associated with that. We don't currently have those bylaws, so it really doesn't apply to us. But I thought I'd mention that as well. Councillor Michaud, was that clarify that for you?
No, that's great. It just seems to be a lot of wording there highlighted in red. And I just wanted to make sure that things were still kind of copacetic to what they were before, and that we're not seeing anything major change in regards to what they're required to do.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other council questions? Okay. Hearing none.
Your Worship, there would be a motion coming forward to, again, next Monday night to have the mayor and clerk sign this agreement.
Okay. So everybody's good, and so the final one will be without any more mock-ups on it or markups on it. So people will want to assure that that what they see is the same with those removed. Okay, we have one more. Mr. Acton, you are up again.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship, members of council. As council is well aware, we do ongoing evaluations of crosswalks and lighting systems, and we continue to do that. We've been working on evaluating a few crosswalks, and we've even been looking at a new lighting system that is utilizing RRFB, which is a rectangular rapid flashing beacons lighting system, and we're looking at putting these at 2 of our crosswalks in town. The new RRFB system is becoming, again, widely used across all of North America. And more specifically in a number of municipalities in our region, such as Dieppe. I understand Amherst may even have them, as well as Sussex, New Brunswick has several of these, and I suspect that there's a lot of other municipalities that have been using these systems for kind of lighting up and some of the crosswalks. Similar to our RA5s that we currently have in front of the post office. We have another one at King Street and Main intersection. And of course, we have another one up at the Civic Center crosswalk. Those are what we call RA5 crosswalk lighting systems. So these would be somewhat similar. They wouldn't be as high, of course, but these RRFBs have a flashing beacon, and I'm going to show some images of that in a second so council can see what those look like. But one of the things, and the biggest reason that we're looking to proceed with this is they're at about at least half the cost of an RA5. So with the current budget that council approved back at capital budget time, about $38,000, we can do at least 2 various crosswalk locations. And we were looking at doing the crosswalk at Booster Pump. So Booster Pump is obviously on Main Street, and also at the intersection of Salem and Main Street was the other location. These are very widely used crosswalks, very busy crosswalks, and that's one of the reasons we selected these locations. And we feel that these RFB systems will greatly improve the safety at these 2 crosswalks, and obviously the cost of them we feel is very attractive to be able to install. If you can, Your Worship, give me a second, and I will just show you some images to council. If I could, just get to share my screen or try to. Is everyone seeing that?
Yeah, it's up now. Okay.
So this is just an image. Again, you've got your crosswalk signing, and of course you've got the flashing beacons just below those signs on both sides, and they would be back to back, so there would be flashing lights basically on both sides, pointing in both directions. There would be a push button as well, where the pedestrian would push the button to activate it, similar to our RA5. And I'm just going to show you another image. Again, you can see somebody has pushed the button, and your flashing beacons are flashing. You've got your signage. You've got some audible signs. And I'll just show another image. This is actually one in Dieppe, New Brunswick. And again, you can see denoting the crosswalk sign the flashing beacons. They're very bright and they get the attention of traffic very well. And I think that's why a lot of communities are starting to use them. This is another one that was taken in, this is Sussex, New Brunswick. So I'll give you another, I just have the image of one pole. Obviously there would be another pole on the other side of the crosswalk. But again, you've got the beacons. You can see the two are back to back here. Your push button, and they would activate for a period of time the flashing beacons to go across the road. So, Your Worship, this is kind of, and again, with respect to the budget, the budget for this line item is at $38,600 HST included. We did go out and got pricing from 5 different manufacturers of this RRFB system. The low company was Absolute Traffics out of Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, who we deal with on a regular basis. And their signage package for one crosswalk is just a little bit over $6,000. And they were the low one. And then we also went out to get competitive pricing on the installation part because the town is looking to purchase these systems ourselves and then hire companies such as Roadway or Black & McDonald. And Roadway was low on the installation side of things, and we would have Roadway, and you may be familiar with that name because Roadway does most of our crosswalk and our traffic light system work in town or have in the past. And their cost to do the install of one of these complete systems, that was one system at about just under $7,000, $6,900 plus HST. So we've got good competitive pricing on the systems themselves as well as the install. And again, we would be looking to proceed with one of these systems at the Booster Pump crosswalk and one at the corner of Salem and Main crosswalk that leads from the King Street parking lot over to Purdy Crawford building. Your Worship, there was no motion required of this. It was mainly information only for council because the dollar value to one of the individual companies is below $25,000. They do not require a motion of council under the Public Works Department. I'd be happy to answer any questions, Your Worship.
Okay. Councillor Evans, please.
I just wanted to repeat the comment I made to the engineer during our liaison meeting. What's not to like? It's cheaper and it's better. So I'm delighted that they're coming up with this kind of suggestions.
Any other councillor questions? Not hearing any. So that was just for advice. There was not coming forward next week. That's correct, Mr. Atkin?
Yes, it is, Your Worship. It was mainly to inform council of some of the work we're doing with these crosswalks and where we're utilizing the capital funding for the crosswalk lighting system and what we're doing.
All right. The money that's allocated in the budget for the crosswalks as per annual budgets, right?
Right.
Okay. Thank you. Not seeing any other comments. So with that, we need a motion to adjourn and move to in camera. Anybody prepared to make that motion? You're all muted. I guess you're all trying at the same time.
Excuse me, Your Worship, it's just a motion to move into in camera, not to adjourn. Thank you.
Motion to move to in camera.
Deputy Mayor here, I'll make that motion, Your Worship.
Deputy Mayor makes a motion to move it in camera. Who was seconder? Sorry.
I'll second it.
I will second that.
Councillor Finney, I think you were first. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. Let's just take a moment, folks. We will ensure we're all connected and disconnected and staff are off, and then we will move forward on that item.
He's getting good at this.
Don't act surprised.
No vacation for him on a council meeting night.
Right.
You can vacation in the chambers.
Okay.
We're back. We're back from in camera, and what we now need, council, is a motion to adjourn. Is there anybody prepared to make such a motion?
So moved, Councilor Michaud.
Thank you, Councilor Michaud moves the motion. Is there a seconder?
I'll second
My
that.
pleasure.
Councillor Butcher?
Councilor Butcher, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you very much. We are done.